Hi, this is Outlaw Bookseller, and we've reached the end of 2021 and the beginning of 2022. Huzzah! The sort of Christmas oops campaign is over, and we don't mention that word again now for at least 11 months. So remember, if you see me, don't mention it to me because it'll ruin my year. Just wanted to talk a bit really about what's coming up on the channel, and just to let you know what the schedule is going to be. Well, probably for the next month, January, we're going to be going to 3 times a week, Tuesdays, Thursdays and Saturdays, work allowing, and then we probably go back to 4 days a week after that. Because you see, while you've been having your Christmas holiday and all this stuff, yours truly has been working. I did manage to get a few days off, but you know, they're more about respite than actual relaxation and pleasure. So now January is kind of my time, and in a couple of weeks time I'll be taking my usual fortnight off, and that's my Christmas and doing what I want. So I'll be shooting a bit less and posting a bit less, but it will still be regularly. And just to sort of let you know what's going to be coming up, of course, because there are many subscribers out there who are fans of some of my favourite rock and roll bands, there'll be more on the Stranglers and more on Hawkwind. There'll be other rock and roll stuff to come. There's some unboxings due at the very end of the month from Hawkwind and from Paul Draper of Manson. I'm a huge fan of Manson. I always describe them as the thinking man's Radiohead, which tends to get people's backs up, but I don't care because I think Manson are far more interesting and far more important than Radiohead. Ooh, what a claim, I hear you say. So I'm going to be looking at Paul's new album, which I'm looking forward to. It's going to be one of the releases of the year as far as I'm concerned. And we're going to have some collections videos in the next few days. There's a Philip K. Dick A format bonanza coming up. There'll be the usual recent acquisitions and reads, what I've been looking at. There's also going to be a vintage true crime Black Lizard paperback sort of collection as well, looking at some of the amazing B format American crime novels which I purchased way back in the late 80s, early 90s, when I was sort of really into American crime, and they're beautiful books, and their packaging has never been surpassed as far as I'm concerned. So that's some things coming up. There will be other things as we hopefully move out of the pandemic. Maybe Omicron is our way out, who can say. I hope to be getting out and about more, doing some interviewing. I've got an interview planned with Tom Toner, science fiction writer, who's a friend of mine. I'm doing more like that, more outdoor stuff, and probably and gradually sort of getting more people involved with the channel, to do interviews and talks with people, because obviously it's difficult in a pandemic to do that sort of thing. I've got to get my head around the technology, so I can just collapse other channels as I've had some requests and agreed that. So we'll see. So that's what's going to be happening. So watch out. We'll have some more Hawkwind, Stranglers, Paul Draper, Philip K. Dick, American crime paperbacks, recent acquisitions. I'm also going to be doing some more on horror as well, because there's such a lot of interest at the moment in folk horror, and after doing the cold test on Christmas Day, and if you haven't watched the cold test, my ghost story for Christmas, please do, because I'm quite pleased with it. I may produce a revised version with an explanation of where the true elements of the story come from, because it is based loosely on a true story up to a point. So there might be more like that coming as well. So there's going to be some stuff about horror and some stuff about genre, and you know, one of my main sort of interests in literature is genre boundaries, how we define genres, whether they're useful, and get you thinking about them, because I find them very interesting. So that's what's coming up. So this is Outlaw Bookseller signing out for now. I'm going to try and film some other stuff today, so hopefully you'll see it soon. Bye for now. And here you see we have a bit of skiffy, a bit of SF. We won't say sci-fi because we don't say sci-fi on this channel, because that's for lightweights and amateurs. So looking left to right here, as you see on the far left, I've augmented my E.E. Doc Smith collection a bit more with the Galaxy Primes, which has got a wonderful Chris Foss cover. It's Panther, dates from the 70s, and you know, we have a quick look at the curating standards, the unbroken spine, and there we go, there's the back of it. Very nice. And I haven't actually read this yet, but I'll read you the sort of opening paragraph, because it really made me laugh. Her hair was a brilliant green, so was her spectacularly filled halter, so were her tight short shorts, her lipstick, and the lacquer on her finger and toenails. As she strolled onto the main of the starship, followed hesitantly by the other girl, she drove a mental probe at the black-haired, powerfully built man seated at the instrument banked console. Well, there you go. That is science fiction as you see it on screens rather than it is in contemporary literature, and that was written quite a long time ago. It came out in the 60s. Doc was pretty much writing still in the mode he was using in 1915, really, except he probably sort of ramped up the naughtiness a bit, as you can see. So, but great cover, you can't really go wrong. Absolutely beautiful. When you see these things in good nick, you have to pick them up because mostly they're in a total state. Next to that, in the centre, you see The Society of Time, the original trilogy and other stories by John Brunner. Now, as you see, this isn't an A format book, but neither is it a proper B format book either. So let's just get a B format book a moment and I'll do a comparison. Have format handy? Of course I don't. Hang on, here we go. So here's a real B format crime novel. So I'll just show you. So as you see, it's smaller. It's in between, A and B, which is a really annoying format, but it's something that the British Library are using. They started off a very successful crime reissue series, which has been hugely popular with the Cozy Brigade. And a few years ago, I wrote to them and said, you're doing all this cozy crime. Why don't you reissue John Wyndham's first book, which is a crime novel published by Noons in 1935, which I think is called Foul Play Suspected. I've never seen it. I mean, it goes on sale when it does go on sale for things like £20,000. It's ridiculous. So there are issues with the rapacity of the Wyndham sort of estate, in that there is reportedly, according to a source I have, infighting between different members of the family who are recipients of what is left of the estate, and that's why there's very few Wyndham reissues and very few Wyndham adaptations. In some ways that's a good thing, because there's been some really bad Wyndham adaptations for many years. Anyway, I'm digressing in the Corbett-esque style, so back to this book itself. So it's a strange format. My real point was that I suggested that British Library do the Wyndham book as part of the crime series, and I've got a sneaking suspicion that actually prompted them to do some SF, and Mike Ashley is the editor, and he's done lots of anthologies. To my mind, they haven't been that successful. I haven't sold loads and loads of them, but it has seen him be able to bring back lots of sort of British SF from 30s, 40s, 50s, kind of things which we've had to print for a very long time, 50 years or more in many cases. Now, this one here, The Society of Time and Other Stories, this is a book I have in a different form under the title Times Without Number, and it's a sort of time travel thing, and it's set in an alternate history, rather like Keith Roberts' Pavan, where the Armada succeeded and Catholicism reigned, and basically you've got a sort of a Catholic future, and somehow they work out time travel, even though they haven't worked out space travel, which is quite unlikely. And I hadn't read this for years, and there's also two other novellas in there, and I picked this up because I felt I wanted a sort of like a newer edition, because my old one is in quite a state, and I'll see if I can pull it out at some point. Bear with me. I'll just see if I can show you my old copy, which has a terribly damaged spine. Okay, so there's my my original copy with the title Times That Number, and there are different versions of text. It was a really amazing material, as these things often were, and I much prefer this cover, but the spine's in a terrible state. And as I say, I've just reread it, and I have to say it has its moments, but I have been thinking about sort of expanding my Brunner collection, but it actually put me off. I do think a lot of the time he produced competent but workmanlike stuff. So it's rather like, if you look at the early and later work of Robert Silverberg, do you really want to go there? With Brunner, I think I'm going to stick to the classic sort of critically acclaimed works, which I already know and love and have read. The only thing I'd say stepping outside the obvious ones like Cheap Lookup, Stand on Zanzibar, Shockwave Rider, all those things. There are some other good ones, but I would say that for me the classic work outside that is The Traveller in Black, which is fantastic fantasy sequence, which I'll talk to you about again. So yes, so I was disappointed with that, and I started reading novellas and I found them both very, very dull indeed. So I'm not actually going to recommend that, but there it is, just so you can see the sort of thing they're doing. On this side, something that I enjoyed much more, but I think I would have enjoyed it more when I first wanted to read it, which would have been when I was about 12, is Out of Time's Abyss by Edgar Rice Burress. And this is the third in the Caprona or Casbah series, which began with The Land That Time Forgot, which isn't a book I'm that fussed on, but I really like the sequel, The People That Time Forgot, which I used to have in a tandem edition, and I bought, you know, from a revolving stand somewhere in 1974, 75, you know, in a little newsagent in the valleys of South Wales or something like that. And I really liked it. And the good thing about The People That Time Forgot is that it's very short, and, you know, the writing's quite crude but powerful, as Burress was. But it does have this amazing idea in there about evolution and how evolution works in this sort of land that time forgot, and it's really strange, and I'll talk to you about that at length another time. So this is the third one, which I never got to read at the time. I bought it recently, Out of Time's Abyss, and again it's in good nick. This was quite hard to find in good nick. I've been after one for quite some time. It's not perfect, but it's not bad, and I read it, you know, in like a day and a bit while at work. About a week and a half ago, and it's, you know, it's great fun, and it's very strange, which is what I wanted from it. I think had I read it when I was 12, I'd been more impressed with it, but it was great to finally read that one and get it out of the way. So that's some things I've been reading recently, and now we'll move on. Something else I picked up recently, I actually picked up in the PS sale. That's PS Publishing, who for at least 20 years now have been probably Britain's premier small press, and they've done a huge amount of books and all sorts of stuff internationally, science fiction, fantasy, horror, poetry, and their books are very nice. I mean, I'm not as fond of them or of any of the current small presses as I am of the sort of great 80s ones like Kerosene and Morrigan, which I think had real quality and elan and originality, and they were sort of the real thing to me. But I do like PS, and this is Aota by Paul DeFilippo, who's an online friend of mine. We've never met. We both contributors to Deep Ends, and we interact now and again, and he's a heck of a nice guy. And as you'll see, this is nice shiny jacket, and underneath it has laminated boards, which is lovely. And what PS normally do, they'll do like a signed numbered limited edition, and they'll do a trade edition. This is a trade one, and I've been meaning to pick this up for ages. It came in 2019 and didn't get round to it, so I do like Paul's work. It's great fun, and usually very original. And basically this popped up in the PS sale. Now PS have a website. You won't see their books in shops very often, and basically they have a PS2 website, which is where they have things on offer. So every now and again things pop up. So I picked this up for, I think it's supposed to be £18 or 25 for a signed one, and the signed ones went a long time ago, and so I picked this up for £7.99, which is fantastic. And as you see, it's got dinosaurs and flying cars and stuff, and it's going to be great fun. I'd say Paul's work is very witty and light, but at the same time very well written, and it's got private eye, all sorts of sort of tropes in there. And, you know, Damien Broderick, the great Australian science fiction writer who has collaborated with Paul, says, you know, it's that, you know, the DeFilippo's brain is like a mixture of Rudy Rucker, Philip K. Dick, Thomas Aquinas, Jan Sladek, Arthur Schopenhauer and Suzanne Vega, which is quite an interesting combination. So I'm looking forward to that as well. Lovely little book, as you see. So looking up to reading that from Paul. My favourite book from Paul is another book that PS did, which is called Roadside Bodhisattva, which is a mainstream novella about a young man who just wanders off, leaves home, and he just goes off for adventures, and he meets an old beatnik type character. And I won't tell you any more about that. It's sadly out of print, very hard to get now. But Roadside Bodhisattva, if you ever see it, pick it up. But Paul's stuff is always worth looking at.